All
Probably
right,
more
here we
old school.
are. Okay, we're
Here
live.
we are.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. We're going to be doing a review for The Last of Us, the TV show that just hit HBO this last week on the 15th of January. I have here today with me Horn Hero
Hello.
and Dancing Sean. Sean has never seen has never played the game, so he's going to go into this basically unsullied. Well, Horn here has played the game just like me. He's probably played the game. Well, he's played the game way more than me. I think he's at
25 times minimum.
Hello,
A couple
Izzy.
dozen more.
I played it like twice. It's been a while, so my memory may be a little hazy on at least game stuff, but I do remember obviously the key points. But we're going to try to keep some spoilers away from Sean as we go through this. And at the very, very end, we'll have a prediction with Sean and then a prediction without Sean of where we think the show is going. It's going to be 9 episodes, the series. The first episode was actually an hour and a half. I was pretty shocked by that. I didn't expect it to be that long. So that was nice.
I almost wish it was longer, but
Up. Hold on one sec. My sis got knocked into the naughty room, so here we go.
yeah, I was not surprised by the length at all. In fact, I was almost hoping it would be a little longer.
Yes. Can I send Akadi away now? All right, but there are 3 parts to this premiere, and we're gonna go into each of the details one at a time. The first part was 1968, where there was an interview going on with a host, like someone from like ABC or something like that, talking to 2 doctors that look like, or scientists, whatever you want to call them.
But they were doctors of epidemiology. That was what they called them.
Yes. One had made a book. So anyways, first I want to hear your thoughts, Sean, on this segment.
Well, let me, if I may, back up a little bit more.
Yes.
There were 3 parts, and this first one was a flashback to, I guess, 60
Horn.
years.
That's what we were talking about. Just this section right here.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to name what the other sections were in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And the
yeah,
other
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
would be a jump forward to 1993, 8,
That was 2003 is the next segment.
2003.
Yeah, and this
Okay.
is in Austin, Texas.
And then a jump 20 years forward, which would so 2003 they'd be jumping to modern time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
2023.
2023, which is
And-
funny because that is, it's right now. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. We'll talk about that later. But yes.
And I think it's an interesting structure setup. The first segment, was not long enough to be its own episode. I don't think.
No.
But the next 2, each of them maybe could have been their own episode. But I do think it was interesting that they presented them all 3 together in one long episode. I mean, it was like pretty much a movie.
Yes.
And I kind of agree with Doug. I think that it was worth it. I think it was worth that setup. Worth the. I feel like it was a more meaningful or impactful to not have to wait a week for that jump to modern time, to immediately know that's where the story is really happening, and this is all kind of background.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that they expect or assume audiences will have the patience for that. And before we started this, Doug and I were even talking about this sort of transition from film to television in the past generation or so, where, I mean, obviously movies are still getting made and are successful in making a bunch of money. But even before the pandemic, it was already shifting that talent and resources were finding more of a home in TV. It wasn't like this second-rate thing. You've got like Martin Scorsese and Meryl Streep, titans of the classic film industry doing stuff on television. And I've thought a lot about this. I think one reason for it, and hopefully we're going to see some of this in The Last of Us, but we're already seeing it. But TV it's a couple things. One, TV has more time. You have more you have 10-ish hours or whatever in a season to develop characters and plot lines, whereas a movie only has about 2 hours, and you do a lot in 2 hours, but if the same effort to doing a lot in 2 hours goes into 10 hours, well, you're going to do more, right? And
Yeah.
And I think that one factor is that just the way technology works now. That in the past on TV, that someone who wrote or produced or directed a show, they couldn't be sure that when the audience at 8 o'clock on Thursday watched this episode, they couldn't be sure that they saw last week's episode. It's harder to have continuing storylines when you're not sure that everyone was able to be in front of their TV at that exact moment. Does that make sense? And so the stories were usually more contained. But now that you could just watch it at Wednesday at 2 a.m. or Saturday at 4 in the afternoon. Like you just can watch stuff whenever now. So you can, if you're not there at Friday at 10 p.m., you can still see it later on. And so showrunners can be more sure that their audiences have seen the full story, and so they can make continuing storylines. And I think that is making for better TV. It's sort of a new model for media now that exists. And video games also, you guys are probably more experts on video games than me, but I feel like that's been a transition that they've taken in modern times, is to have more extended storylines and not just running through with a gun or a sword, hacking and slashing. It's more of a long-term development that you're getting to know characters in, and that you can have intricate plot lines, and you can become more connected in a more immersive world. And so now combining that with TV, man, this is making for great media. And I was kind of suspicious going into The Last of Us, because generally speaking, adaptations of video games have not been that good,
They have
successful
not been,
in the past. And but usually because they're being made into movies, not TV shows, so they don't have enough time to hash it all out. And also maybe because they didn't quite have the budget or trust of the production studios to put the effort into it, and maybe they didn't understand what was really making a video game work, that it took more time, or it wasn't just about action scenes. So
and then everything felt surface level, it didn't have the depth to really dig into.
And I've really tried hard to keep myself at a distance from this so that I'm not tainted. But I don't want to ramble too much, but just to give you an idea, when you said it was 9 episodes at the beginning, Flint, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know it was 9. I mean, it's fine. It's not really a spoiler, but I wouldn't have been surprised at 6 or 12 episodes. But I did hear a little snippet of an interview with, I think it was the executive director. And I don't know if he's, quote unquote, the showrunner, but I think he was the showrunner for Chernobyl, which I also haven't seen, but I know was well done and well thought of and well acclaimed. And so it's just another good indicator, another reason for me, even though I was suspicious of this up front, to be like, well, if he's doing it, maybe it'll be good. And he said in this interview that he, and through the course of the production of the show, was trying to account for the fact that there are going to be some people who know and love this game inside and out.
Yes.
And you have to meet their needs. But there are going to be other people who don't know this game at all, who don't play video games at all. They don't. Maybe the last video game they played was Pac-Man. So maybe some people even play video games, but they don't know this one. And so, but there's a range of people they've got to be appealing to with this, and that they were trying to be careful of that. And that once again gave me hope that if they can walk that line, this will be great. It'll be for me, even though I haven't played this game. But because it is based on a game, and there is a lot of knowledge and a fan base built on it, I'm trying to not know too much about it. For example, by the way, spoiler alert, if for some reason you're watching this and you haven't watched or played Last of Us, I kind of knew the daughter was going to die. Just because I knew that Bella Ramsey was the star. I knew it was Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. And so we're like, I don't know, 30-ish minutes in, there's been no Bella Ramsey. Disease is breaking out. Like they're setting up a tragedy that his daughter's going to die. There's almost no way, so that might have made it hit less hard. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have bothered to watch this show if I didn't know that she was in it. She was a outstanding minor character in Game of Thrones. I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones. But
and we'll talk about each one of the actors, a little bit of history of them. But we'll discuss this more later when we get to that section, the 2003. But I had a very similar reaction when I played the game. I was more confusing, but like I said, we'll talk about that once we get to that point of the story in this review. But in 1968, by the way, I'll let you know up front, John, this is actually made up. I don't say made up. This was never in the game. This 1968. So from me and Horn, we were going into this like, oh, this is interesting. What's this going to bring to the show? But yeah, as doctors just discussing this disease or so they're trying to break down. It's not a virus, it's not a bacteria, but it's a fungus, and how funguses could basically be dangerous in certain situations. And they kind of compare it to ants, where if like an ant, it's a fungus, they don't die, but they're controlled. And I thought that was just interesting how they were setting up the show. Yeah, because it is an outbreak. This is like a zombie apocalypse, or it's not zombies, obviously, but like it is a pandemic, and
it's basically zombies.
They're
basically finding
zombies,
a new
yes.
way to make zombies, which
Yes.
I'm fine with. It's interesting.
Yes,
But that's
Way
based
more
in
interesting
reality,
than
by the way.
a lot of others.
yeah,
Yeah,
No,
that's based in reality. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of different types of fungus. It's just like there's a lot of different types of bacteria
Yes.
and viruses and everything else. And
Like-
there is a certain fungus that can get into an ant and sort of take over its body. It doesn't like control its mind like, now we're going to take over the world. It controls its mind and like makes it eat certain food that the fungus wants to eat. Or, it's still just basically chemical reactions happening
Yes.
inside the ant. But eventually the fungus like takes over the ant and eats it,
Yeah.
it from the inside out. And it's a interesting twist for them to set up a new way to basically create zombies. I thought it was interesting. Also wanted to point out that the actor that played the interviewer in that section,
Yeah.
he's been in a few other shows, mostly comedies. He was in
The Mummy.
he was in what was the name of it? Silicon Valley. His name is Big Head. That's what I think of him as. Big
Are you
Head.
talking
He
about
was
the
like-
host, the one who's hosting, or the one who was?
Yeah. The one
Okay.
who was, there was the host and two people he was interviewing, the scientist, specialist, whatever. And that host he was also in Mythic Quest. I brought that up.
I thought he was in The Walking Dead, but
Recently.
I don't think it's the same actor. I have to actually do more of a research. But in the latest, because they had the finale, there was an actor that looked very similar to him, and I debated if it was him. But Horn says that the doctor, one of the doctors, he was originally in The Mummy, correct?
Yes, he was the brother of the main female protagonist for
Yeah.
all three of the Mummy movies.
It's like a comic relief type of character. But yes, when he pointed that out to me, I was like, oh yeah, it is him. Which I think that's just it's neat that they about these characters. But yeah, I just thought it was from a standpoint of filming, I thought this scene was really almost important because, as Sean pointed out earlier, some people just have never seen the show, so they don't have an idea of what to expect. Like me and Horns know what this virus kind of does and all that, but to even get to that, it may take some time. So to basically, as a narrative standpoint, to say this is what this is about, so you're not like exactly confused on what's going on. I thought it was just a good and maybe a really good standpoint from a writing standpoint.
I was going to say, you also keep calling it a virus when the whole speech was talking about how it's not a virus.
Okay, I'm
it's a
sorry, fungus. Yes, it is a fungus. Correct.
Maybe give ourselves a pass for this episode. We're gonna, whether we should or not, we might use virus, fungus, disease interchangeably.
No, but you're talking about the talk, and I'm like, he literally said it's not a virus. That's the whole point of it.
Hopefully he's here to scold me.
And he's talking about how more dangerous a fungi is than a virus.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
Potentially dangerous.
Because viruses we can fight, we can quarantine against, but a fungus whose only desire is just to spread to as many people as possible, we lose.
Yeah.
That was such a good line right there.
Yeah, I also love like how they like showed like the audience like when he started diving into it, and like it was just like an airy feel, almost like there were like zombies. Obviously they're terrified, but like or they're intrigued or whatever. But I thought that was just interesting.
Intrigued, captivated.
Yeah. I got an airy feel from it personally.
It was a good line, Doug, too, because earlier, if you remember, the other guy was saying, throughout history, we've had to face different plagues of one sort or another, but in the end, we win.
Yes.
So then this guy starts talking about fungus, but in the end, we lose. Like, ooh, it was ominous,
Yes.
And that whole scene, I want to give credit for the filmmaking effort that went into making that feel like the 60s. They had that sort of sepia tone film quality, and the attire, the kind of brown jackets, and the
Yeah.
stage layout. They did a really good job of capturing that moment in time.
Yes. And also like in the 60s, like now, technology's grown, and there's like we have a different, I feel like, mentality than people in the 60s have. Stuff like that I feel like is like so foreign, that type of talk. Maybe I'm wrong. Like them talking about viruses and all that.
You know what? Well, maybe the topic of what they're talking about is a little foreign, but the format is what we're doing right now. Instead of like a talk show,
I guess
we have
very
YouTube
fair.
videos.
That is very fair. Yeah.
But even that topic wasn't quite as foreign. I mean, it was a little more foreign then because just the world in general wasn't as connected. Does that make sense? Like there was no Google, there was no CNN. It was harder to get information. But it kind of made the information was out there a little more homogenized. Like anyone in the world that knew, well, 99.99% of anyone in the world, in this world that we're watching, that knew anything about this threat of funguses, they all knew it from that same source. They only know it if they watch that one TV show.
That's true. Yeah. Do we have anything else to talk about in the 1968 scene before we dive into 2003?
I can't think of anything.
That's fine. All right. So, we get introduced to a couple of characters in the 2003. There is Sarah, who's actually the main point of view in this point of the show. Joel and Tommy. Joel's the father, Tommy's the uncle, and this is happening in Austin, Texas, on Joel's birthday, which is September 26th. I'm sorry, September 26th.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this introduces a little bit more than even what the game introduced. Like we get to see a lot more of the world, the downfall almost before the big event happens, like the city outbreak.
Can I say one thing that is actually really important?
Yes.
There's a very, very good reason they did it in 2003 and not 2013.
Oh, okay, yeah. So supposedly the game, I guess, took place in 2013. Wasn't that when the game came out?
Yes, it was. No, it was about then. So in 2013, there was big internet culture. And so there was a huge debate when the game came out and stuff. Eventually people just looked past it and they're like, it's just a good game. But like people are like, okay, what happened to the internet? Like the connectivity that people have from 2013, phones, internet, everything, that is really important. And like you can't just ignore that those things happen. Like the thing about the cordyceps would spread so fast because of that. Like why is this not like more quickly dealt with? So I think the choice to go back to 2003 is so smart because the internet then so small. Yeah. YouTube isn't even around. Like message sharing, I think only MySpace even came out.
Smartphones too, not just the internet.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I was thinking
the internet in everyone's pocket. I agree that was a really good decision because, especially because, and you can even see why it was more important for the show than the game. Because in the game, not that people don't care or won't think about, if you will, but they're really a little more focused on the game. The characters are playing, being at the next level. But when you're watching the show, you're not interacting as much. All you can do is think about what's being presented to you. Mm-hmm. And so if that was in 2013, when he came driving up in his truck, or when she was like, worried about the neighbor or whatever, I would have called each other on cell phones. He would have been Googling where the police blockade is. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of knowledge that they could have, should have just reached in their pocket to get if it's in 2013. But in 2003, no, they have to deal with it the way they did, which is more exciting. And so I agree, Doug, that was a very key decision in the setup of the show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry to preface that, but I was just
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, there was a large online debate about things like that, and eventually people just like they didn't think about that, they forgot. Whatever, it's still a great game. It's just one of the flaws in it, and so people who went into the show, seeing 2003, nobody questions why doesn't everybody have a phone, except for people that weren't born back then. But like, people aren't making those questions because it's 2003. Internet wasn't there, phones weren't there really, so it makes more sense.
Yes. So obviously we open up with Sarah, and I think this is also another interesting choice that they did. For one, if people didn't know, the person who plays Sarah is Nico Parker, and her mother plays on Westworld. I don't know if you knew this, Sean. She plays Maeve.
Yeah. Sandy Newton? Is that the actress's name?
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know how to pronounce that first part. You said Twain?
Tandy, I think. Tandy.
Yeah. Newton. I thought that the actress looked familiar. I didn't realize it until I was like, okay, that's her mom. You know, like there's obviously similarities on how their expressions, I guess is the best way to put it. But I thought that was this neat little like inside thing that, you know, that they got another person that worked on HBO, you know, his daughter. Of course, Joel, he plays in Game of Thrones as Oberyn Martell. It's probably one of his most famous roles, but he also plays the Mandalorian Mando, which is another really big role for him.
I was gonna say, I don't know. I think Mandalorian might trump that now.
It might, but I'm still gonna always remember him. Game of Thrones was so big for his time, and he left such an impact for being in the show for so little. It's very
Star Wars is bigger than Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones is bigger than The Mandalorian, if that makes sense.
That's
but
fair.
He was only a tertiary character, whereas he was the main star of Mandalorian. He's also he's been in other stuff too. He was a central character in Narcos, the Netflix show.
Mm-hmm. He was also
other stuff too, but
I'm not going to spoil it, but he was a character in Kingsman 2.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, after hearing that he was going to be Joel and rewatching Kingsman 2, every time I heard him speak, because he's a Texan man in Kingsman 2, I was like, I just hear Joel. I'm like, no, I hear it. I hear it. I don't question it anymore. I agree.
And of course, Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, is also from Game of Thrones. She may have even started from Game of Thrones. I actually don't know that 100%, but she plays Lyanna Mormont, which is a character later on in the series.
She
stood
that
out,
was her first role.
Yeah. So going into this, even in the game standpoint, going into Sarah, I was like, wasn't the main character this other girl? I was confused a little bit when I first played the game. This was a long time ago when it came out, like a decade ago. So I was weary about this. I was like, maybe she's grown up. I had no clue. I was confused, but like I felt like something tragic happened, when I played the game originally, just because of the advertisements at the time for Joel and some other character, which is Ellie, obviously. But we do have to like care for this character, and I thought they did a great job, a great casting for this character. I thought Nico just did a really good job with Sarah. Personally, I'm not sure of your thoughts, John, for watching the show for the first time, or like what are your thoughts on Sarah?
The daughter.
Yeah.
Right? Am I getting that?
Yes.
She was interesting. I mean, I don't know how to say this without being too negative, but she was kind of bland, and they didn't have that much time to develop her. Two, young kids haven't had as much time to develop a personality or a role in the world or whatever. But she, they made us care about her. They made her. They seemed to they wanted to make a point of her and her dad having a good relationship. That they were kind of witty and they knew each other well, and that maybe, I don't know, she was willing to go outside the box to do something special. She was, able to think enough to plan ahead and knew what would make him happy. And I don't have anything
negative,
particularly outstanding or negative to say about her character. But other than, they did a good job of setting up well. And again, I think I might be tainted just because the whole time I'm like, she's just going to die. She's just going to die. Like, I just didn't believe she was going to make it past the episode. So maybe I kept myself from getting too attached. I don't know.
Yeah. More?
I do. I was just gonna say I thought she was fine. I like the detail they added to her. So in the game, in that section, she had a shirt for a made up group. You'll never see it because they don't really have the name on it. It's not that well
Like a band.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, a band. And in the show, she actually has a shirt for that same band, but has more of a 2003 style on it. And I thought that was kind of a cool callback.
But still a made up band?
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering, I was watching with Rita, and I was asking, I was like, who's on her shirt? Is that Mariah Carey, Britney Spears? What is that? Is that the whole? Like, couldn't figure out. So I feel a little better. No, because she had real bands. She had like Nirvana on her wall, you know.
And she had Spice Girls, not Spice Girls. What's the Destiny's Child?
Yeah.
She had that poster as well.
And in general, the game does make up some stuff like the movie that Sarah got for to watch with Joel was a made up movie. Like some, I don't know, action-packed movie,
Yeah, but I watch a lot of movies, and I do not recognize that movie at all.
Yeah.
So what's also funny is in like in The Last of Us.
Sorry to cut you off, but I worked at Blockbuster in 2000.
Yeah.
I did not know that movie at all. So.
That's a good point. Too.
That's funny. No, in The Last of Us 2, they mention that is Joel's favorite movie. So I like that they actually included that. I was like, they completely made up a movie and said, yeah, that's Joel's favorite movie. And it's just like, oh, they actually just straight up included that in the show. They didn't have to do that, but they did.
Yeah, so I think that goes, there's like three things I have to say about that. One, it's generally good world building.
Yes.
Two, both that movie and the music that we're talking about, like that's like an element of filmmaking. Music, usually you think of music and it's like the music that's playing in the background while they walk through the woods or whatever, but also just like music exists in the world. That was part of the sort of, I don't know, classic movie Easy Rider. One thing that it did, and The Graduate, one thing those movies did that was kind of innovative was to use pop music in the movies. Up to that point, music was always just orchestral stuff. It was never like an actual song that real people in the world knew.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a good way for a film to engage with the audience, to make it feel like you're really there, or you really know these people, or they experience what you experience, or whatever. But also, like I said in the beginning, the showrunner, I looked his name up, by the way. I just want to say it real quick. I feel like we should give them credit.
Yeah.
Craig Mazin?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Yeah.
Mazin, yeah.
I was confused if he was the showrunner or because it says executive producer, writer, So, but yes, I assume he was the showrunner.
He's the the term executive producer, showrunner, the writer, director. There's a lot of crossover in a Venn diagram of what those different people do, but. But anyway, this is a good example of how he's like putting stuff in there that people who played the game will understand, recognize, appreciate. But even though I didn't know who that band was, it didn't turn me off from the show. And maybe even might make me or a person more likely to play the game, to find out more about that band or whatever. But anyway, something that doesn't get in the way. It's not something I need to know from the game to appreciate the show or this character. But people who do know the game will extra appreciate this show and this character. So I think that's really well done.
So, in the earlier scenes, you get to know a little bit about Joel and Tommy. Seems like Joel, like, pretty much, I don't want to say I feel like Sarah runs or makes everything like the day-to-day activities go with Joel. Like, she's like, I don't want to say a boss, but like, I'm trying to think of the term for Sarah, but like, she
manager, maybe she's recognized the hangups through the course of their lives.
Well, I was gonna say, can I just mention,
she's gonna do or not do, and she picks, she does those things. She keeps him on track.
Yeah, keeps him on track.
I was just gonna say, he works in construction, which is a job that sucks by itself, but he's also a single father.
Yes.
Like, that's an exhausting job, and so him being exhausted all the time really makes sense for the role. So I actually kind of appreciate that she's kind of been the manager, because she like realizes that he does so much already. And
yes, she does appreciate. Yes.
There's another little bit that was in there I appreciate, and it makes me want to bring up another concept: the idea of elegant storytelling.
Yes,
where you can you can give a lot of information with a small detail or only a brief moment of time that you can, or maybe one little thing can serve multiple purposes. So, for example, one time they showed his truck driving off, and it had a bumper sticker on the back,
I was ready to bring
Gulf
it up.
Corvette.
Yeah, said Operation
Sandstorm.
Desert Storm combat veteran. Yeah.
So that tells us a lot about him without having to spend time with contrived dialogue. He doesn't have to have this conversation. Oh shoot, what was it? I forgot his brother's name. Jimmy?
Tommy.
He doesn't have to say, "Hello, Tommy, my brother. Do you remember when I was a vet in the Gulf War?" You don't need this contrived dialogue to let us know, but you still get to let us know. It's a way that's realistic. It doesn't cost him any time or money. It doesn't require extended dialogue, but it still conveys a lot of information in a very short period of time.
Yes.
And it conveys it without pigeonholing them, right? They don't have to tell us he was an artillery or an aviator or a mechanic or how many tours he served. They just let us know, and our minds can wander about how deep it went, what trauma he experienced, how good he is with a rifle, et cetera,
Like, we don't have to question any of that. We're just like, oh yeah, he was in the military.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah.
Another thing I thought that was neat is, this is like part of the dialogue. On the radio, there was like a place called Jakarta that was brought up, and I didn't know what it was. Obviously, Joel or Tommy didn't know what it was. Yes. And I liked how, together and smart, maybe even Sarah is, like that the younger people sometimes are just like,
well, they're currently in school, so
exactly.
They're learning all this information.
Yeah. I that's like this neat little thing that I just appreciate, I guess. I feel like as you get older, you just get lazy. Oh, it's not like you get lazy, but certain things don't matter to us as much as others. Like paying bills matters to us, making sure the kid is fed, stuff like that.
Knowing the exact day and time of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, that's not exactly the first most thing on our minds.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we remember from school that the powder gag of Europe that led to World War I, but we don't necessarily remember the date that the Archduke was assassanated. Yeah. But she might have learned that last week, so if she was watching Jeopardy, she might nail that question.
Exactly. But it also shows like I like how they show that she seems to be, for one, happy, but also together and more of a positive influence on the people around her. So
she had to be paying attention in school to remember that Jakarta was the capital of Indonesia.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Even if kids are learning in school, well, are they really learning it? Are they really paying? That she seems to be learning what's being taught. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was another example of elegant storytelling. Like when they say, there's some sort of chaos or whatever in Jakarta, anyone who knows Jakarta, anyone who happens to know, I don't know, world geography or politics or whatever, that might be like a clue to something is up, but it's far away. But anyone that doesn't know Jakarta, they both get to tell us where Jakarta is and tell us that the girl is paying attention in school. That's elegant storytelling.
Yes. And in the scene, did they like walk outside, get into the car? You get to know about the neighbor really fast. It's like Connie or Miss what the heck is her other name? Miss something. I should know this, but I remember Connie is like the neighbor. And you have like someone in a wheelchair who's I don't know, paralyzed. I'm not quite sure what that.
She's old.
She's just old. Yeah, obviously issues with her. Which obviously are more key to the outbreak later on in this episode. But I appreciate that they are showing signs of the world breaking down or what could happen in a pandemic. But people just do their everyday lives. Yeah, paramedics or whatever will go by, and you may be like, as more things happen, you may start questioning, you're like, is something really going on? But, like now every day, if I saw like a jet fighter passing above me, I'd be like, that's weird. But I'll just do my everyday. It's not like, oh man, the end of the world's happening.
That by itself isn't enough to change what you're doing. But
exactly.
Enough different things together in the context of a show about the apocalypse, maybe the characters aren't piecing together, but as an audience, we are.
Yes. Obviously, the most important thing earlier on is she needs to get her this watch fixed that is her father's. So she goes to like a shop, and gets it fixed. And like I remember seeing like two cops, a fire truck, and a SWAT. I think that was a SWAT unit. Just passed by. You're like, geez, like if I saw that, honestly, I'd be like, holy shit, that's cool. But obviously, in the back of my mind, I'm like, what is that going to? Like what's going on? But anyways, but the point was, to get the watch fixed and then go home. And she goes home, and of course the outbreak starts breaking out. You have Jewel come home, and they have like that sweet little moment, where she gives him the watch. They watch a movie together, and she passes out. Joel gets a call that Tommy's been arrested, so he has to go get him out of jail, which is also interesting because, for one, I don't think this happens in the game exactly.
No, it doesn't.
But for one, it gives him away from her, like as a story standpoint. But it's kind of like, if he didn't get him out, things may have played out differently later on. Like he had to get him out during the weekend, or in their mind, before he got locked away for a week. And in actuality, Tommy is like just an integral part of like them trying to get out of there. I don't know, it's just little things, but they made up reasons for to get Tommy involved. Why they were together. Why, like the outbreak didn't happen. Like imagine if the outbreak happened at the house. They would have to eventually get Tommy. I don't know. It's just a way of getting them together. Storytelling wise, I'm not sure if I'm making any sense, but.
Well, I want to talk about one small thing. I really liked how the old lady was like having those spasms, in the background, so unfocused, while she was just picking out a movie. I was a little upset when I noticed the Box Trolls movie among the movies that they had, because that movie doesn't come out until 2014, and I was like, oh no. But only because I've seen that box before that I even recognized it, and it was one movie. The rest of them, as far as I can remember, were still valid for that time period, if they were real at all. But it was like, that was the only one that I noticed.
That's a tricky thing. Like when you make something that's prior and you start like putting props together, and you have to make sure that the props are actually accurate to that time period. It's a tricky thing, and you could easily have a slip up.
Yeah, but it was such a small detail. I didn't care.
Yeah. And they've been consistent enough otherwise. You almost wonder if they did that one on purpose, if that was a shout out to something. I don't know.
Oh, that's also very true.
Well,
yeah.
It's also possible just that like maybe the change from 2013 to 2003 was a little later in the process. So that scene had already been recorded, and that movie coming out in 2014 versus 2013, who cares? It's a year. It's close enough. But then, but they move it back to 2003. It's like, well, there's a 2014 movie among them. Oops. But also that scene where she's giving him the watch. There was one line from the game that I wish they had included. It was almost word for word.
It was almost word for word, yeah.
I think the only difference was he said, it's a better job than mine, when he was talking about the drugs, instead of in the game where he said, well, then you can help with the mortgage. And I almost wish he had said that instead, but minor detail.
But obviously, the outbreak happened. Does anybody know what the green flicker means outside? I actually was trying to figure that. I mean, obviously it's a power outage, but I didn't know if that meant something else.
Could have just been a blown transformer.
Like, Transformers, are they that color when they blow? I was just curious. I have no clue. I was trying to do research on it.
Of light, I wouldn't have expected them to be that green, but I don't really know.
Yeah,
and it might have been different in 2002, and it might be different in Texas. I don't know.
Oh, that's fair.
In 2003, I would think that a green explosion from a transformer wouldn't be unheard of. Also, I think the way that they structured how everything fell into place for Tommy, Joel, and Sarah being in the car together was a lot more fluid and
that's what
better integrated than it was in the game.
Yes.
My one nitpick about that was that they didn't run inside to grab anything. That they didn't grab, I don't know, bullets for the gun, water, a change of clothes, batteries. Like, I feel like it would have been worth spending 30 seconds to 1 minute to have them scramble into the house, grab a handful of stuff, and come back out to the truck. I feel like
it is fair.
Could have done that from like a filmmaking perspective, and should have done that from a plot perspective.
But you also have to consider that
they're trying to get out ASAP.
Well, no, that they pull up, they see Sarah running from something, he kills something. Is it worth running into more monsters?
I can see to not run into the house, but those reasons don't overweigh the reasons to run into the house.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Fair.
Even if they could have fixed a one-line dialogue, let me grab my blah blah blah. No, we don't have time. Like, at least they addressed the idea that someone thought, hey, before we randomly flee this chaotic scene, we should go into our home. One last thing for my watch. Well, I guess I happen to be wearing that, but is that the only sentimental thing any of them own? Is that the only, having been a veteran in a war, doesn't he realize that they might need water? I just feel like they had time to drive home from the jail, knowing that this chaos was happening. Weren't they thinking, all right, when we get home, jump out of the truck, grab this and this from the bathroom, grab that and that from the basement, I'll get my daughter, meet me back in the truck, you know what I mean? I feel like they could have done it, and I should have, but it's not the end. Obviously, it's still really good, but it's the one thing I was like, really?
That's
now, in the game, I think Joel was the one that went to the next door neighbors and said, something's wrong with them, they're sick. And he had shut the door, and he's pulling out a gun, he's loading it, he puts some bullets in his pocket, and that's when the neighbor starts knocking on the glass door, breaks in, and he's like, stop it, don't. And then, like, he charges him and shoots him in the head.
Yeah, I remember she never left the house in the game. It was all isolated in the house, and then they transport, they go to the truck. Now, Selena, one of my favorite segments in this pilot, maybe cinematically, just in general, and shows or filmed, is that truck scene. Like, that. Obviously, that's like a callback to the game because you are in a truck. But watching it, I felt so isolated, and I felt almost scared, like just
almost claustrophobic.
Exactly. However they filmed it, to give that feel, I thought was incredible for whoever, like the DP or whatever who did that. And there's like a lot of like stuff, obviously, like a lot of little details that they had to like get right, I know I appreciate that scene so much, and the choice that they kept in that truck. Like, they could have showed, like, obviously there was like one or two times they showed like outside the truck, but a majority of the time it was isolated in that car. And I appreciate that they chose to do that.
I also like the fake out moment. There's a moment where a truck almost hits them from the side, but it stops. In the game, that truck is what flips the car.
Yes, I thought that was I caught that.
So that's almost a nod to the fans. Be like, "Ha, we got you. You thought that was going to be it."
I think another part of me that like was like scary is seeing airplanes, like, not fighter jets or anything, but commercial airplanes flying above you, and they can't land without the tower giving them the go to land, because if everyone starts landing, they're just going to crash into each other. So they're stuck in the air, until they run out of gas a lot of the time. And they, like, I don't know, in a pandemic, I can see that happening. Like, that's just terrifying.
What I assumed was happening is the planes weren't being allowed to land at the airport. And so they were just landing wherever they could. They were trying to find open stretches of roads or planes.
Oh, yeah. It's just terrifying.
The zombies on it. It's also possible.
I actually thought about that too, because so the plane that actually blows up, I could be wrong on this. I think you have to have enough gas for it to be that bad. So I think that particular plane got hijacked. Oh, not hijacked, but like got the infected, like, just started killing people, and they just lost control of that plane.
The pilot was infected,
or the pilot, exactly.
It was something like that.
But because like I said, I don't think it could explode that bad. I could be completely wrong because I'm not like a.
It also looked like it landed on a gas station, but that was just me.
I as a fan of like action and all that, that scene was just freaking awesome and terrifying. You know.
Oh yeah.
Planes also usually do have extra fuel, and
they do.
You can come up with a lot of explanations, and also it's another thing it's interesting to think about. One effect they got from that cut to 20 years later is that whole scenario that we witnessed through Joel's and Sarah's eyes. That's going on in every city.
Absolutely.
That same type of thing is just happening everywhere around the world, you know.
That's something Sarah said. She's like, I think, what if this is happening everywhere, not just here?
Yeah. Like that. That's all right. Let's go to Mexico, and you know, in my head, I'm like, they're going to be probably screwed anyways. Like, even if I had seen this for the first time, you know, knowing the apocalypse, like you're screwed. But like in reality, you would still be like, in actual reality, if an outbreak happened, you would be hoping that you could find a place that's safe. You know, like it makes sense, their choices. Their acting was really cool too, just because like, you know, like move forward, like Joel was just like heartless a lot of the time. You know, like there was like a couple that was on the side of the road with a kid, and he like just go past them. You know, like
it's like, we have a kid too. Go.
Yeah. It's just like,
and at that moment you're like, whoa, what the heck? But then 2 minutes later you're like, okay, it's a good thing that they just kept moving.
Yeah.
And it's one thing that's interesting about these zombie apocalyptic scenarios is it, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but I think about this a lot. It's sort of the nature of morality is dependent on a certain level of stability. When you're starving, like the idea, like as a general default, you shouldn't kill people, you shouldn't steal from people. But when you're starving to death, it's maybe a little more understandable to steal food, right? It's not, even if it's not justifiable, but if your options are be moral or be dead, you know, I can imagine, or be immoral or be dead. Like, I'll be immoral, quote unquote, steal this food. Then later on, I'll try to replace the food. You know, hopefully, maybe we'll see. But you know, when you have less and less resources and more threats on your life, the more understandable it is to just try to keep yourself alive. Like, in generally, we shouldn't pollute the environment, right? We should try to help out homeless people. And especially when we, you know, whatever that means, society, me, you know, a person is wealthy. When you're wealthy enough that you have your home and your food and your warmth and even your entertainment, your investments, your everything else, okay, now I can help this homeless person. But when I'm on the streets with nothing but a gun and someone's trying to kill me, like at this moment, I'm not trying to feed a homeless person, you know? And when you amplify that across the whole world, it creates an interesting scenario where what a hero does gets challenged. You know, Joel is a protagonist, but we see him doing some questionable things, right? He kills an old woman. He drives by a woman and her child that need help. And in normal society, those seem bad. But when your life is at risk, when your family's life is at risk, rules and morality might start to bend a little bit. And, and that creates an interesting scenario for drama, you know?
Yes. And, you know, obviously this leads up to, which this is why I was intrigued by The Last of Us, leads up to, you know, Joel's carrying Sarah because she has an injured or broken ankle around. And, you know, there's like all these dead. So I'm like, she's going to die. She's going to die to one of these things. And no, he gets encountered by a soldier. A soldier is supposed to protect people. And that soldier shoots them. So you have like this chaos going on, monsters literally on the streets. And a soldier kills them instead. And I was people like, what is this game trying to tell me? You know, like I started immediately questioning, you know, the direction of what the game was trying to tell me from this scene, you know. And then they jumped 20 years later and I was pissed off a little bit because I was like, I wanted to know more about this.
It's connected to what I was just saying. It's like you have a scenario where, and, you know, we don't exactly know the details, but you can imagine they have a scenario where they've got one section where it's been a very short period of time when all this is happening, and a few select people that may be very cold, maybe evil people in the first place, but they've come to this realization that we've got this one little spot in Houston that we know is safe. And it might be, you know, it might be like a hospital or the Capitol building, but 2 city blocks. But we just know in this particular spot, no one's infected, and outside, anyone might be. And this is happening in the whole world. Like, they might be making this decision between killing this one guy and his daughter or letting all of civilization end.
Yep.
They're trying to preserve some human life, some safety, some order in some small place, and they might have to sacrifice everything else because there's too much chaos to happen too fast to make a decision about who to let in and who to not. Yes. They can't trust this random soldier on the ground. Like, in fact, we kind of know that girl was infected, right?
Do we know?
No, I don't think
she
we
was
knew.
in the room with the grandmother breathing out fungus spores.
Okay, this is
she
something
believed that she was infected. She was scared to tell her dad. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the case, but I feel like that's what the show was trying to tell us. And even if it wasn't, they've also been running around in the streets with a bunch of these people. Tommy was, it turns out Tommy wasn't, but he was in jail. So in there, I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's not crazy to expect that these two random people are infected. There's no way for this soldier to test. All he knows is on the other side of that barrier, no one's infected. They're not allowed to let anyone else on the other side of that barrier.
Yes.
People who get infected go crazy and try to kill you. Yep. Like, that soldier, on some argument, some level, could argue self-defense for himself.
Oh, absolutely.
On some bigger picture, self-defense for society as a whole. It's tough. It's awful. It's devastating. It's tragic. But might be the right call. You know?
I mean, he was also really hesitant about it. He was like, he only did it because he was ordered to. He's like, sir, it's a little girl. I don't want to do this.
Yes. And this was also exactly like the game. And I loved how the soldier wasn't black and white. It wasn't like he was like, yes, I'll kill you. You know, it was, he questioned himself. He like thought about it and like, is this even right to do? I mean, obviously there's an outbreak. They know, okay, this must be the right thing. And it's tricky.
I mean, we wouldn't judge that soldier for shooting at them.
Yeah.
Right? But Joel just killed an old woman. He hit her in the head with a wrench, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's not that much different, right?
Yes.
He didn't really know what was going on, whether she was infected, why she was running. He just killed her. And he's like, I just got to protect my family. I don't know what's going on right now. Kill an old woman. Let's go.
Almost like instinct, because
the soldier might have seen as much terrible, tragic stuff as they had seen too.
Yeah.
We don't know what that soldier, even though he was ordered, that might not be the only reason he did it. Because even just being ordered might not have been enough for him to do it. He might have also done it because he's seen people eating each other alive in the streets, and he might be like, yeah, I know, man. I guess, I can't take this chance. I know how tragic this already is. I can't let it get worse. Sorry, dude. You're not the first person to die, and you're not going to be the last. Yeah, it's, again, it makes it very interesting.
Yeah.
And, you're not happy about it, but I
it's
think that they make it understandable. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else about the topic of 2003? Obviously, this is important because it structures who Joel is going forward. Losing a child. I mean, I don't even want to know what that is, but Joel has to experience this.
Their acting in the final moments was perfect.
Oh yeah, me knowing the scene was going to happen, I still got choked up. Personally,
he didn't just lose a child, which is bad enough, but he lost his morality. I think that he just realizes you have to move through the world differently than you used to. That now the idea of people having rights is secondary to the idea of people being infected.
Yes.
But also, from this, we can also assume that he probably really loved his wife, and that she was also the last connection to that said wife.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Literally, true. The last connection to any peaceful, happy life he had is just gone.
Yes.
Like, he knows that the world is going to shit.
So yeah, so I remember being so torn in the game when they jumped so freaking far in the future. I was like, whoa, wait, I need to process this. What just happened? And I don't know how your feel was with the time jump, directly after that particular incident. Like, what was it like? Were you like, oh, interesting, or like wanting to see more, or I'm curious on what
I was pretty fine with it because I felt like some of the stuff we've already said, that the world's plunged into the chaos. this thing that's happening here is happening everywhere. The details of how it devolves in Houston or around Joel isn't as important as the idea that the world gets to this new apocalyptic state.
Yes.
And it was a little surprising that it happened, and they chose a good moment, maybe to add to the surprise, but they also chose a good moment to kind of, I think, by doing that jump, they kind of let us know. And again, it might take a second to process this. And if you're expecting something different, it might be frustrating to you. But I think that's a way for the storytellers to clue us in that that's not the story we're telling. We're telling a different story. That's all background. Now, here's the story we're really telling. You needed to know that background, but you don't need to know the details of how this action sequence plays out. You just need to know that the world is falling apart.
Yes.
And I'll even say that Rita, when she was watching it, we were watching together, obviously, and she was like, "What?" She was also kind of, she like said out loud, she's like, "Oh, how can they? What? I want to," she had a, but by the end of it, she was like, "Yeah, I realized that it was more interesting to see characters, to see Joel's character develop and how the world is dealing with this aftermath."
Yes.
Than to just have a bunch of more zombie horror action. That's not as interesting as what they ended up doing, and she was happy for it. And even though at that moment it was a little surprising or frustrating.
And I feel like this is what shows like Walking Dead is one of the biggest ones, talk about is there are other threats, or people have to live with this. Like, it's not like there's going to be a cure. You just have to live with it. And how will that affect how people react? Will they, make groups? Will they become villains? Will they become good guys? Where is the morality and stuff?
What does it mean to be a villain?
Exactly.
Like someone letting another person into the city that's infected. Maybe they did it because they didn't want to kill a child, but they end up killing all the other children. Who's the villain then? Right?
Exactly. Like that scene. What was interesting that they showed this kid being brought in, and they didn't maliciously kill this kid. They did it as best as they could. Made him feel comfortable, and almost it was like a mercy death.
Yeah.
And is that better than, like you said, killing a whole pack? A society, a place that's been contaminated free.
But also gave us a hint as to how the infection detector works. That if it goes red, they're infected.
Oh yeah. I don't know why I didn't catch that. You're right.
Yeah, no. In the background, it shows them using the device on her, and then it shows the screen being red.
I didn't catch it at first till later in the end when they had the
three of them. I should have noticed that, but
that's green, red. I was like, it made me realize that kid, the first whatever application of a medical device was a test, and then the second one they're like, we're gonna give you some medicine, it'll be okay. That medicine was probably killing them. Medicine, quote unquote.
They're
killing them mercifully so they don't go through the suffering, so they don't risk spreading it to other people, etc.
But here's the thing that I think that's really interesting. They did bring this up during the 1960 talk, but why fungi are infinitely more terrifying than a virus or bacteria. A virus, you can create a shot for that people can then be slightly stronger immune-wise towards it. If it's a bacteria, you can take antibiotics and just kill it. A fungus, there's not going to be something that can just be a cure because it's affecting the inside of your body in ways that you can't just get to.
Yeah, there might be a cure eventually. Like, the virus is affecting insides of your body that you can't get to. Well, we find ways to get to it.
But right now,
it's worth noting that fungus, bacteria, you got to remember this is all potential. And again, we're talking about this fantastic show, and we can just accept the science of it. But the reality is, fungus is part of our body. Fungus is like in your skin right now. We need fungus to live.
Yeah.
It's bacteria is in our intestines. Like we are, the ecosystem of life is very integral with microbes. Does that make sense? And fungus in and of itself isn't this dangerous, scary thing any more than people are, or milk is, or something like that. Cheese is made with fungus. Like fungus is all over it. Penicillin, fungus is all over the world, all over our bodies, and it isn't by itself necessarily dangerous or bad. It's the same thing with bacteria, but it can be. And in the past, through history, bacteria and viruses have killed huge amounts of people. So there's been huge efforts to figure out how to deal with them.
Yes.
So far, fungus hasn't. So there hasn't been a huge effort to deal with it.
Right.
And it might be hard to have a huge effort to deal with it if suddenly planes are crashing in the streets and it's spreading super fast and et cetera, et cetera. So
and also 2003 technology was not ready for that stuff.
Exactly.
True, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, as we keep going on, I mean, even we had a pandemic recently, in the last couple of years, and was that dealt with the best way? We still have issues dealing with pandemic issues, So, no, yeah, definitely interesting.
Well, honestly, most of the world handled the pandemic really well, and I think a lot of aside from the U.S., I think the rest of the world managed to get less than, except for maybe China, I think had less than 100,000 deaths from COVID.
I think it was millions. I'm pretty sure it was millions.
I know that the U.S. skyrocketed that number.
Yeah, but yeah,
I mean, this could become a huge discussion, but I'm pretty sure that the hospitalizations and deaths and whatnot in the U.S. wasn't that different from Germany or Rwanda. It was pretty similar around the world.
But yeah. I mean, obviously, pandemics are dangerous. So, and the 2000, and present, the main characters are Joel, Ellie, Tess, and Marlene. We focus around these 4 characters as we get to know the world that was built after, 20 years after the breakout. And we get to see, a little bit of there's a group called Fireflies, and there's the Fedra, which is I guess the government. Am I correct on that, Horn? They are the government, right? Fedra is government, theoretically. I was pretty sure it is. There are a couple of different groups. There's mention of a couple of others out there too. In the areas that are not civilized or the quarantine zones. But you have this group called Fireflies, which seems to be a terrorist group or an activist group. And in charge of that is Marlene, which is a neat side thing. The character who plays Marlene in the show plays the same character, or the actress plays the same character in the game. They got the same actress. I thought that was just a cool little thing, Easter egg or what you want to call it. Anyways, but Joel, his main goal in these scenes is to get a battery or a truck to get to Tommy, because Tommy seems to have went disappeared. He doesn't know what's going on with his brother. Well, you have Tess, who seems to be a love interest or a partner of some sort to Joel, and she's trying to get that the battery. So we have a scene with a guy named Robert, and he miscommunicated, accidentally beat her up. Her men, his men beat her up, and we have a scene involving that. But in the long run, they're trying to find Robert, who has the battery, and they the stories meet together with Ellie and Marlene. Marlene seems to have a goal of causing chaos, so people, the Federalists, distracted so they could get out of the area they're at right now. They're trying to go west with a girl named Ellie, and there's a lot of secrets involving Ellie, who she is and all that, some mysterious girl. What are your thoughts on this, John and Horn?
I think it's interesting. It's kind of leading up to this, I said several times that the nature of morality is questioned. That there's this irony that they're upset by this dictatorial organization that's in charge now. Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is dictatorial type stuff. They're worried that these people are gonna take charge and get too much power and use violence, and so they take charge and get too much power and use violence. And theoretically they're doing it for the greater good. They're trying to fight back. They're justifying their actions in one way or another, and it might even be justified. But I do think that they're, however much the show intends to be doing it, there is this irony that they're becoming who they're fighting against.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of looking at it. Horn?
So, this is actually probably the most divisive part for players who played the game versus people that have not, because this section changes a lot.
It does change, but I feel like the points are still met.
Oh, not just are the points met. I think a lot of the points are better.
So just to give you a perspective, Sean, really fast, the game pretty much starts like when you play the game originally, you're playing Sarah until her demise, and it jumps, and now Joel's the point of view character, and it's or you follow him third person. It's not a first person game; it's a third person. And of course, a game's drive is to make you have fun and like tell a narrative as you're walking around, as you're figuring out stuff. You can't do that on a TV show. Like, that's just boring. Well, it can be boring. Like, they have to obviously tell a story a different way because it is film versus a game.
There's a reason for it. You can't just show a guy arranging chairs for 5 minutes and expect people to really like it.
You might be able to do that if you've already established intrigue, characters, background, and sometimes some shows can get away with what I want to say is tedious moments. But usually it's just one element after a bunch of other stuff has already been established.
Yeah,
I was more making
it might be interesting, but
I was more making a jab to a specific scene in a certain episode of a certain show at the end of a certain season of that people did not like. Sorry, I'm gonna stop pushing around the bush. When Tyrion was arranging the chairs in the last episode of Game of Thrones, I was like, "Why is this here?" I'm sorry, but so up until this point, the things that were different from the game were just digging and making depth and creating more intrigue for the characters. So the real changes weren't that important, but like here we're starting to get changes to the game that are actually important because the game had a little bit more action in this part. We have a little bit more intrigue. We have a little bit more background character interaction that we're seeing. Whereas here, we're just seeing Joel and what's happening there. We're not really seeing, we're not hearing people having conversations in the background that are completely irrelevant. We're not, like, I know that's not something people look for, but in a video game, having just two people voice act dialogue that has nothing to do with anything that's going on is such a weird thing to have, but it's so cool to build into the world.
It's a world built tool, in a game.
Yeah, but for a show, you don't want to waste people talking to do nothing. You want to have dialogue make sense, have a reason for it. So, like Joel learning about what jobs are available. Okay, they have. So that means that they lay out roles and shifts that people can work to get money. What the money being rations.
Yeah. System. Yeah.
And then also like he's
Joel's
building
also
up money.
like, I don't know how to say it exactly, but abandon his ego. Like he'll just do whatever work. Like, yeah, I'll work in a sewer, just whatever. He has a bigger mission in mind than getting dirty or having pride or anything like that.
He just wants money, or just needs the money. Yeah, so it's just it builds up well. The problem I had, if we're going fine to start moving on, is towards Robert. So
Robert
in the
was
game,
the guy with the battery.
Yes,
he was the guy with the battery. I really liked the section as a really good intro section for the game, where we get to go around, we're learning about how stealth mechanics work, how you can take out people silently, how you can distract them. All that stuff is really good in a game. I'm sure that wouldn't be very entertaining to watch. So I like how they kind of had that in the background. I did not like how Robert's men kind of kidnapped Tess. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, I
But
like
that could also be like a miscommunication. Well, obviously it was because Robert didn't want that to happen. It looked like he's like, I didn't mean for you to get beat up. You know,
I need you to forget that this happened. Otherwise, Joel is going to come after us and he will kill us.
A couple points. One, in that moment, as an Unsullied,
yeah,
I didn't know Joel was her man. I didn't know their relationship.
That is fair. Yes.
Okay.
I was starting by the end of it to suspect it, but it was. I feel like it was a reveal when we saw that.
That's a good,
And also, not to say that it was okay, but to me, it was all okay. I had no expectations for what was supposed to happen or what happened in the game. So none of this to me felt unrealistic or out of character or anything.
That's good to know.
To me, it all seemed very fine.
I think the only reason I'm disappointed about that section was Robert is in the game was built up, at least for that little section, to be kind of just a scumbag. So it was really satisfying moment of Joel breaking his arm and then eventually them killing him. That was kind of a satisfying moment for the game. But him just winding up dead there, it was like, oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though they just didn't, understandably, they didn't want to spend too much time.
I was gonna say, yeah, because that's like
developing a guy just to kill him in this opening episode.
Fair.
His point was
trim something out, and this was an efficient way to do it.
Right, like his point was he had a battery, and two people wanted the battery, Joel and Marlene dealt with the issue.
Not just that, but also that there is a lot of underhandedness going on.
Yes,
backstabbing, mistrust. Without developing his particular character too much or giving the audience the satisfaction of Joel getting him, they still were world building well. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, the build up with the battery is easily the best fix from the game. The absolute weakest part of the video game was Tess and Joel having a deal with Robert for weapons. That was all they said. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't think weapons are as hot of a commodity as essentials, drugs, whatever. Like, I don't know. They are kind of noticed as kind of drug dealers, and they show that in the show a little bit. But it's just like, I don't know. It made more sense that they were trying to get a battery and what they were trying to do to get the battery for, rather than just generic, weapons. So I actually really liked that change.
Yeah, the motivation.
It does make sense that the weapons would be less people need a weapon than need food. And even if, let's just say, everyone needed a weapon, all right? Once everyone gets a weapon, that's it. They have one. They don't need another one. But you still keep needing food every day. You keep needing energy, power, resources. It's consumable goods. You keep needing over and over again. Drugs, cigarettes.
I was gonna say, I love the fact that like money itself wasn't important. It was almost like accessories, commodities. Yeah, like using cigarettes as like money makes complete sense because I mean that's more important to a certain person or not. Like I love how the barter system worked, I guess, in this. But obviously there is Ellie. Ellie is locked up for whatever reason. Do you know the reason why she was locked up? Sean?
Well, I mean,
I don't know how much you know about this
reason, but I think it's at least partly for her own safety.
Mm-hmm.
What I've pieced together is there's something about her blood, her DNA, maybe some injection that she got at some point or something that she seems resistant to the disease. And I don't know, I would suspect that maybe that means that there's hope, like that some sort of cure or treatment can potentially exist.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even specifically, they know that they can use her blood or her DNA or something to to treat it. Like, excuse me, sorry. I don't know how much I should be speculating in what's going to happen next.
No, I obviously
I could talk a little more about it, but that's the gist of it. It seemed like it seemed like there's something about her in relation to the fungus that is special and has potential, even if it's merely some sort of hope, but maybe some hard science that might, one, put her in danger, like other people who want to find the disease might want to get to her. There might be competition for who's going to get her first or who gets the cure first. Or maybe her life is even in danger. Maybe in order to get it, they have to cut her brain out of her head to make the injection. You know, like her, like she even said, like, if you tell anyone, you will be dead. You know, and so that makes me think that, you know, maybe they know someone that they can bring that she can be brought to. Has promised to not kill her or just turn her into some science experiment or, but even that I think is dubious. I think that, you know, whoever they think they made that deal with, I'm not sure how far they know they can trust them. And I'm also, again, going back to morality, I'm not sure it's appropriate. Like, I mean, if you could murder one person to cure cancer, should you do that? I don't know. If I was the one person, I would be saying no. But if I had cancer, I might be saying yes. And, you know, and even if some percentage of people are willing to die of cancer rather than a poor innocent little girl get murdered, what about, like, more people are being affected by this fungus than get affected by cancer even? You know what I mean? What if the literal future of humanity, what if you not you murder one person to stop cancer, but you murder one person to save all humans? Either all humans die or one human dies. What do you pick? I mean, at some point, you have to pick. What difference does morality make if there are no humans to be moral, right? At some point, you have to decide to sacrifice the one person to save, you know, I don't know how much of humanity it has to be before it becomes justified, but I think it's more than 2 or 3 people. You know, I think when you're starting to talk about millions and billions of people, even if it's evil, it might be a necessary evil, you know?
Right. No.
And that assumes that everyone's trying to be moral and figure out this awful dilemma. But what if there's just one person who's just greedy and evil already? Like, yeah, kill the girl, get the cure, let's be rich. You know, like there's especially in this world they have set up.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how far they can trust whoever they think they're sending her to. And clearly they need to keep it secret because anyone who finds out will try to get her first. And, you know, maybe you can trust Joel and Tess. Maybe. We don't know them that well. Like, Joel is being set up as a protagonist, and this seems like it's going to be a surrogate daughter. And so the love he had will get just placed onto her. But Tess, I don't know. She seems to be pretty cutthroat, pretty brutal and ruthless herself. And
but it does tell a lot because Marlene, we've seen, is a smart character. They had a lot of scenes having her there and letting her show that she knows what's going on and
confident.
has the bigger picture in. And she said, my squadron basically just got all killed, but I can trust you two to get her there. That tells us a lot about Joel and Tess.
Yeah.
Because
I don't want to take away from your point too much. She is smart, and she can, it seems, trust Joel and Tess. But she also is desperate.
She's absolutely desperate. Yes.
Doesn't have any other options.
I did like the
there's a difference between trusting them more than anyone else in this desperate moment and trusting them 100% no matter what. Right.
Right. And she did, like, also keep saying, like, you need to do this. Like, please do this. You know. Like, she was like, saying, this is not a joke. This is
everything you needed more.
Yeah. Like, this is so important that you have to put 100% in. You can't put 50% in. You have to go 100% on this. You know,
there's no room for fuck ups, is what she said. You cannot fuck this up, Joel. And yeah, I
guess it's like if you really trust him, she would have told him more about Ellie.
Oh,
right?
I don't think it's a thing about trust. So. I think she's just like, in this moment, the only thing that can get her to where I need her to go are these two people.
Yeah.
Like, what would have taken a squadron can be accomplished by these two, but I'm only going to them because I have no other choice. And they're the ones that are here. But the fact that
there's also different types of trust. She might trust their competence.
Yeah.
She might trust their ability to get through the outside world or willingness to kill someone who gets in her way. But it doesn't mean she trusts them to not cash in LA for 1 million credits or whatever.
That is also true, yeah. Also, it seems like there was like some conflict with Marlene, Joel, and Tommy. Like they kind of mentioned like Joel's like, it's your fault that Tommy left. So, you know, they have like obviously some history, whether he was a Firefly or not, you know, like there's obviously baggage there.
Also, I interpreted that to mean it's definitely Joel's fault that Tommy left.
Yeah, oh, yes.
The more angry and blame he puts on someone else means the more it was probably really his fault.
What are your thoughts on Ellie? You know, obviously we don't get as much time with her as Joel maybe, but you know, in this episode, but what are your thoughts on her, you know?
It's similar to Sarah. They're developing her to be, you know, kind of quick-witted and savvy, and they're making more of a point of making her tough than Sarah. Although she's in a Sarah might have been as tough in this scenario. She was maybe tough in a different way, you know.
Yeah, she was tough in her own society, while Ellie is tough in she was born into this. Like,
and it was a good one line of dialogue to say that she was taken out of a military school, because that lets us believe that she knows how to handle a gun, or has a certain level of physical fitness, etc. So it's an interesting introduction to a character. I worry a little. A lot of times they I don't know, filmmakers, showrunners, book authors, whatever, make characters too good, especially kids. Like, it's too many times you have a hero who can drive better than any stunt driver, can also fly a helicopter, also is a perfect shot with any random they pick up. They know how to load it and reload it and aim it. They know karate, and not just know it, but they're better than anyone else that comes out. You know, like, what are they doing with their life? Like, who is an expert at all these different things? Like, you know, maybe if you make a point of it through your life to learn how to be a stunt driver and to learn karate and to learn how to fly a helicopter, but, you know, businessmen don't do that. Like, average Joe family men don't, you know what I mean? And so maybe even an average Joe family man who he's a military vet, and so when he learned how to fire bazookas and M16s and learn how helicopters were, but 14-year-old kids have not had enough hours lived in life to be karate experts and crack shots with a weapon and know how to maintenance a Humvee. Even if you go to military school, there just aren't enough hours in the day to learn all these things. And so that's a little concern I have, is they might make her too good at too many things for such a young girl, or young girl or boy, just a young person.
Yeah. So your hope is that she's not like that.
So
I was about to say, I'm sorry, did they show her being good at anything yet?
No, I think that's a point that Sean is scared they're going to do.
Right. It's the type of thing that would typically happen.
I was like trying to go back through, and I'm like, I don't remember so far she has tried to stab the officer and just was able to stab his hand. She tried to attack Joel and she got instantly bodied. I'm like, I don't remember her being good at anything.
It shows also that she's very what's the word when you attack with, or you act with your feelings more than
aggressive.
Aggressive,
impulsive versus logical. You know, I feel like that's like a point, you know, because even Marlene's like, you need to be smarter or you're gonna get killed, you know.
Fun little fact, the person that is playing Marlene in the show is the same person that voice acted and did the motion capture for Marlene in the game.
Yeah, I brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said that earlier. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember hearing that. My bad.
But overall, you know, Joel and Tess are tasked of taking Ellie to a checkpoint. You know, they call it the Capitol. So that's like their goal, and once they do that, they'll get the supplies to go find Tommy. You know, that's at least what they set up, you know, in the show. And as they are exiting the place, they run across a soldier. Oh, what's up?
I burped.
Oh.
Sorry. I didn't say anything.
They run across a soldier. I like how they were showing their way, them sneak out, because this is similar to the game in ways, at least. I got some flashbacks of that happened in the game. But anyways, but as they're exiting, a soldier encounters them, and you know, it happens to be a soldier that Joel has been dealing with in the past with bartering, you know, cigarettes and all that, or pills. and the guy scans him, scans, Ellie. Ellie is infected according to the thing, and Joel attacks, like it's a parallel to what happened to him with his daughter, and he like just kills the guy, or at least beats the crap out of him. I'm not quite sure. I assume he died, but you get to know that Ellie is infected or has something unique about her,
But
what's up?
I was gonna say, I also do like that they showed the beginnings of him starting to care for Ellie, because he stands between this guy with a gun and Ellie, and has this moment of almost like PTSD of when they shot his daughter, and that's the only reason he really goes all gung ho on.
Oh,
him.
he absolutely
like,
had PTSD on that.
You can almost see in his eyes how his eyes almost just darken. Like the brightness that is normally in his eyes just go dark, and he just loses himself to that. Like what he have done in that situation if he wasn't just holding Sarah, which
and to be fair, by the way, I actually don't think that soldier was going to kill him or shoot them or anything.
Probably
I don't
not.
know 100%, but I got the.
I don't think he was necessarily going to shoot him right then and there, but what he was going to do was going to lead to them being killed.
Yes, even though watching it the second time, I got the vibe at least before Ellie was scanned that he was going to let them go. He was going. He was, because they were bartering. I could be wrong, but he was like, "I'm taking everything. I'm taking all the pills, all the stuff. If I let you guys go,
half off. No, it's gonna be all off."
Yeah, I could be wrong, and he could have, but turned them in. But I know the change was obviously when Ellie scanned. Like they were screwed at that point. If Joel didn't do what he did. Like I could be wrong, and they were screwed anyways. But I half of me was like, was he going to turn them in? Was he? Because he didn't even also shoot them or anything, or like he was doing everything in his power of the soldier to not shoot.
He
Very
didn't
similar to
chain them
the
up.
guy.
He just
the parallel to the.
He was
going
to get as much from them as he could,
Yeah.
one way or the other, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
he might be able to get more from them by not killing them. But I don't think that Joel or probably Tess could live that way. They couldn't allow all their work and effort and determination and resources to get sucked up by this random dude and just be subservient to him for that. They would rather die than go through that.
Yes,
that's fair.
And that guard probably knows it too. He probably knows, like, if I do anything short of killing them, they're gonna kill me. Like I don't think there was any way out of that without either them or him dying.
Right.
Even if, kind of like the guard in the beginning, he didn't really want to, but he's kind of realizing it's just what I have to do. I don't think there's any way for him to not. I think the only way for him to not kill them is to just kill them later, to get all their stuff and then kill them later.
That's fair. That's fair. Anyways, that ended the episode. Any last thoughts before predictions?
I guess I could make more predictions beyond what's going on with the girl, but I do think that's one big thing. I will also say, and again, I don't want to get too much into a big discussion about COVID, but percentage of the population that died, we're like 15th. There's a bunch of countries, and it's not like we're way worse than like we had around 3,000 per million people die. And so did Greece and Brazil and Italy and the UK and Russia. Like there's a few countries that were really bad, like Peru and Hungary had like twice as many percentage of, if we look at it as a percentage. Like we have like a million people, but we have a 300 million person population.
That's fair.
The percentage that died is on par with pretty much every other. I mean, again, there's a few countries that are like, in fact, I was going to say, like, in this sort of apocalyptic disease spreading scenario that they're in, probably the safest places to go are like Alaska, like remote places that don't have airports, that don't have dense populations, places that would be hard to get to from Texas, but anyway, so there are some countries that had lower death rates based on their population and location and stuff like that. But most countries are pretty similar.
But I assume like the prediction that you kind of said is like kind of the prediction you think of like overall, maybe like with Ellie, for example.
I expect that she's going to be, if I have to kind of guess at where things are going, it's going to be road trip movie, okay,
Yes.
quote unquote, right? They're going to be traveling across the countryside trying to get to was it North Carolina?
It's
Somewhere, like, a
Wyoming.
tower?
Is it Wyoming or am I wrong on that?
It was
Actually,
Wyoming.
no. Yeah, Wyoming is where Tommy is.
Wyoming's where Tommy is, but they're not going straight. I mean, he wants to go to Tommy eventually.
Oh, yeah. They're going
right
to
now.
the capital. The capital is, I think, if I'm correct, the capital or this place is on the other side of a city.
Yeah, no, they're going to the capital of Austin. They're going to the Capitol building of Austin.
Capitol building of Austin. Okay. And they're in
right now. Where they're right now,
Boston.
They're in Boston.
Yeah.
I thought they said Salem. I thought they said you have to get to Salem. And it occurs to me it's probably a Salem, Massachusetts. It's definitely Salem. I always think it's Salem.
That's
North
where
Carolina.
Marlene needs to go, I think.
Yeah, Marlene says she needs to get there. She didn't tell us really why we had to go there, but she said that's where she needs to go.
That's where she needed to go with Ellie. She was going to go with Ellie to Salem. So now, isn't that where Joel's going to take her? Is the same place?
He is meeting at a checkpoint.
Okay, but eventually they're trying to go to Salem.
She said, "I need you to take her to the Capitol building. I'll round up some people and I will meet you there to be able to get her to where she needs to go."
Yeah.
Anyway, they're going somewhere that maybe not states away, but it's out in the wilderness where they're probably going to be facing a threat of people infected with the virus. Maybe some sort of patrols, military of some sort, and maybe other similar resistors to them.
Yeah.
So people who are going to want their truck, their battery, their gun, or whatever. And so we're probably going to get like a chase scene and a gunfight and some zombies jumping behind the trees. I expect all that kind of standard fare stuff.
Yeah.
And through the course of it, we'll probably get some character development. Joel's going to tell some story about his daughter, some story about the Gulf War. Ellie's going to tell some story about her, where her parents are and what happened to her in the military academy. And probably each of them is going to reveal some secret that Marlene has. And that'll probably be, I don't know, a couple episodes worth. And brewing in the background, I bet we jump maybe to some other point of views. And, we see Marlene's going to get caught and interrogated, or send other troops, or someone else that knows what she knows is going to find out she sent Joel with the girl. Anyway, someone is going to be sent after them. Right. Someone else who knows or thinks they know something about Ellie is going to be chasing them. I feel like there's enough material and excitement for this to have more than one season. I feel like if they try to drag it out to 5, it's going to fall apart. But I bet 3. I bet they can do an appropriate good amount in 3 seasons. And I wonder if the end of this season will be getting to Tommy. That's I don't know. That's my rough outline, guesses of where things are going, what's going to happen.
Awesome. Obviously, if you want to stay for predictions from what me and Horn are going to say, we're going to do that in just a moment after Sean gets off. But no, I love to hear from someone who hasn't played the game where they think this is going. So
here's definitely section. Tess is not going to make it, one way or the other. Whether she doesn't make it because she turns on Joel and Ellie and wants to get her for the money or whatever, or because she's just a tragic moment when she dies because a zombie gets her, bandits or something like that. So your
prediction is this is a story between Joel and you think this is a story between Joel and Ellie then, when it comes down to it?
I think it'll end up being that way.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Okay.
I bet I wouldn't be surprised at the end, like the final episode, if one or neither of them are still alive of the series. But I think they're both. I think they have plot armor for this season, but Tess does not.
That is fair. I mean, it's like
those are
I want to say it's like a little spoiler
ideas.
when you have like 2 lead characters on the title screen. Yeah. You're like, okay, they're probably the most important characters of the series, probably. So no, I that's fun. I like to hear that side. Anything else that you want to add, Sean, before I guess you leave and me and Horn will go into a little into the spoiler realm of stuff?
I can't think of a particular other thing. I guess.
I can say something. I'm so happy they stuck with the game's music.
that I did want to point out that was another good use of music. With the radio, and also another sort of elegant storytelling moment to show that she's kind of paying attention and she is clever. She, was cracked the code of the music signs they were given.
Yeah. Now, what Horn was referring to is the actual background music,
right? The orchestral background
that
music.
That is straight ripped from the game. And I actually had an issue with this originally. I remember not liking the music when I very first started. I was like, this music's just so weird. At the end, I was like, this music's freaking genius. Which is interesting, It's like sets up everything, like at least like how you feel, I guess. I mean, that's what music is supposed to do, but
I just love the guitar. It's beautiful sound.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, this was like an Easter egg. There was a guitar in Joel's house. So obviously he probably plays, or at least Sarah plays. One of them played, maybe it was just decoration, but I thought I'd throw that out there. There was a guitar.
Oh, I guess there's one other thing that I'm wondering about in the back of my head that so far I'm like, they'll explain it eventually, or maybe it doesn't matter. But how does this spread? They walked into a room with the decomposed fungal body.
Okay, originally,
I feel like the spores should be all over the place. Okay. And they didn't even flinch. They weren't even worried. So are they already inoculated? Yeah. Once the person dies, is it not spread? Are they immune to it? Is there some small percent of people immune? I don't understand.
So
that.
In the game, and this is like spoilerly, but not. I found out, and I have torn feelings about this. It spreads through spores, and you actually, if you get too much in your system, you will die. So they have to put on a mask. They're not using mask in this series.
Yeah. Exactly,
so I'm confused on, for one, why they did that. Maybe they did that because they're paying actors to be part of.
I actually know the reason for this. I don't know if you guys want to know.
Masks I know. Not,
I actually know the full reason for this. I don't know if you guys actually want to know.
If it's spoilery, I don't want to know. If you think it's something the show will address, then
it's not going to be addressed at all. I'm actually a little upset about this, and I don't know if I want to spoil it, but it's like
hold back. You can tell me next week. Yeah,
you should be. I will tell Flint. About this in our spoilers.
I think that's a good thing because I should know this. Because I am curious, but. For Sean's sake,
they've got to address it. I feel like they've got to get a line of dialogue. Yeah. There's no way they can't have the kid that definitely has it show up, have an interview with this soldier who's not wearing a mask, have them walk into a room where the fungus is all over the room and not wearing a mask.
I will point out that
over and over again, people are being exposed,
people,
and it's not an issue. So.
Yeah, people can't. I think in general, if like you had the disease and someone didn't. You can't directly get it that fast. Maybe if like you were around 100 people at for like an hour, or I don't know, maybe you could. But
like,
it's
literally people have. Yeah. Did that one decomposed body on the wall?
I was gonna say that thing like right there would be a spore infested area, and you would actually see the spores. Like it's not like you can't like air. You can't see air.
And they walked into that room like, I wonder if you died here. Maybe you got it here. Oh, let's keep going. Yeah, there was no like, oh crap, get out of here. Are you worried we have it now? There was nothing.
And if you inhale it right then, you wouldn't die. But if you are in it for a long period of time, like a heavy induced spore area in the game, you will die. So so I assume there's like some type of.
But I feel like they could have addressed that by saying like. We got to get out of here quick.
Yeah, but I actually
one line of dialogue, but they didn't give us that. They didn't give us anything. So.
My guess, without because I don't know this, is it's like with The Walking Dead. Everyone's infected. It's just a matter of how infected you are. That is my guess. I don't know if that's true, and that would make sense. So if you're in a room with one of those spores in this universe, in this show, it doesn't matter. It's a matter of.
But if you get in like the theory of the world, like maybe like the people designing the show or the game have this understanding, but the people living in the world weren't worried about it. The characters that we're following, who've been living in this for 20 years, who've had their friends and family die from it, walked into this room, saw this, said nothing, just kept going.
Yeah.
So the system that the soldiers have for a new person coming into the city. The quarantine zone. Someone came into the quarantine zone.
Yeah.
They had the disease. No masks. No worry of it being spread. So I feel like there's got to be something in the water, some sort of inoculation, even if it's only temporary, or there's got to be some explanation.
I'm hoping so too. Yes,
they know about how it spreads or something, but
because that would be the biggest thing that you could tear apart in the show if they don't explain it. You know, right? Yeah. That doesn't make any sense because I am confused myself. But anyways, we could talk more about that in later episodes if we figure out what the heck is going on. You know, at least hopefully. Yeah. Anyways,
all right.
Thank you,
good
Sean.
Chat about a good show.
Yeah, and we'll continue this every Wednesday around this time. And you know, just hammer out each episode as they go until it is over with Sean and Horns. So stay tuned for spoilers.
Plural, it's singular.
Horn. But anyways, yeah, thank you, Sean.
I'm going to start calling you out on it, bro.
Good. Do it.
All right.
Anyways, yeah.
I'll log off now.
Yes.
And see you next week.
See you next week.
Peace. All right, he's gone.
Is he gone? Yes. Okay, he's gone. All right.
Okay. So, oh my gosh! So a director came and said, "We're not addressing it. We're not dealing with spores. Period." In the show.
Oh, that's their explanation.
Yeah, that is the actual explanation. The director's just like, "We're not dealing with it." That's why I was so mad. I was like, I want to tell Sean, but oh my gosh, he's gonna be just as mad and might want to drop the show. I don't want him to know. But
no, I think for him knowing that is something he's just gonna have to chuck up as that is stupid. But we're just going to wait. Just to let you know, there's a difference between them saying we're not going to address the spores and not address how they get infected. They may still have a reason.
They've already addressed how they get infected. If you get bit, and they had a diagram saying if you get bit in the arm or leg, it could take a couple hours. If you get bit in the torso, it could take torso or arms. It could take 20 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
Or if it was legs, it said 2 to 3 hours. If it was torso or arms, it said 20 minutes to an hour. And then if it said head to neck area, was 5 to 10 minutes.
So I want to make sure I got this straight. So the only way to get infected is to get attacked or bitten, correct?
From what they've shown or told us,
which doesn't make any sense because then how did the old lady die? You know what I mean? Like I'm like that doesn't make I thought it was airborne, and I thought just everyone got infected, and if you have health issues, you die faster. You know,
they might use Walking Dead logic, whereas if you do die, you just turn.
Yeah. And maybe she died
because
we don't know.
She just died right there because she was old and looked kind of like paralyzed.
Actually, that's fair. Died. I actually do think that Sean should know that next week, because then he could at least not have it in the background constantly. Like it's like one of those annoyances. Like he could at least chuck it up as that is stupid, but I at least will live with that. You know that choice. So that is it's a little lazy writing. I'm actually more curious on why they still chose it, because maybe there's like more of a reason, like maybe the special effects was too annoying to do, or the mask,
and also just didn't want to have everybody with masks.
Yeah, that's my guess. But the Mandalorian does it, but of course, that's part of his thing. You're paying Pedro to act, and you can see his emotions, and it's harder to see his emotions.
That was just from a director's thing. It might change. It might have changed after he made that, but that was in a director's meeting. People asked, "How are you going to address the spores?" And he kind of was just like, "There's not going to be spores."
Now, also, maybe he said that because he didn't want to spoil something, like actual spoil something that it connects to. And he's like, "I'm just going to check it up for now, like this." Now, hopefully, we are right that he's just being not lazy, and there's actually a meaning behind it. Because if not, that's going to be the biggest unfortunate downfall to the series.
I agree.
So,
but dude, I had to mute my mic when Sean was talking because I'm like, motherfucker, you got all this right.
Oh my god, yes! I cracked up about that. I was like,
he guessed the exact ending.
Now, I will admit though, I could have maybe predicted to a degree the ending. Well, to a degree, the actual ending, like the last couple of moments, are heart wrenching of how the show, or the game ended it, and it made me think so much.
It's going to end in a way he's not going to expect.
That's what I think.
But he guessed the main conundrum.
Oh, he guessed the plot line, absolutely, which is hilarious. So good on him. We're going to call him out once the show.
His timeline was way off. No. We're going to see Tommy in like episode 5 or 6.
Yeah. Also, he never brought up that there's going to be other characters that we're going to get attached to and fall in love with.
True.
And of course he won't know that because he doesn't unless you, even if you watch the trailer, it's not like, oh, this random person is going to be a main, more of a main character than you expect.
Honestly, though, he might be a little disappointed that this whole thing that it's going to be the big plot reveal is the end of season 1. Probably.
Yes. And that's what I was going to talk about. Where's the series going? I do think they're going to end at the end of the game. It's going to be the end of season 1. And actually, I think he may be like disappointed but appreciate it. And he also may be like, what the heck is season 2 about? And for all of us, we wonder that too. Like, are they going to keep canon or
don't go canon? Don't keep canon. Don't keep canon. Please, 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 for the love of God.
I think how it's going to be structured is next episode we're going to see Tess and her story end. The episode after that is going to be the introduction to the gay guy. I wish I remembered his name.
Bill.
Is it Bill? Okay, Bill.
And Bill and his partner Frank.
And we may have an episode or 2 about him, and then we're going to jump to the brothers, and maybe in between that we'll get the flashback, of Ellie, like you were saying, because I think that point is what you're talking about, right? That driver is after that, with the long drive, the longest part of the game, you think?
So what?
Sorry,
I zoned out for a second.
The point where you're saying how
right,
the long drive.
Yeah, I think episode 2 is definitely going to be the point where Tess is gonna die. Spoilers.
Yes.
Whatever. We already said this with the super spoiler section.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna end just like how we were going from leaving the quarantine zone to going towards the Capitol building. I think that no, actually, episode 2 might end after finding Frank's body and getting the car to go.
It also may end with Bill, like Bill gets introduced. I still think they're going to save that.
No, there's too little time.
There's
too little time between that.
What's the Raiders?
The next episode is like. So what?
Well, once they're driving down like a highway and they like go into like they crash into like a market and they get attacked by raiders.
That's literally after Bill, right after Bill.
Okay, I was pretty sure that was after Bill. I just had
That's literally where Chroma stopped last week.
Such a good part. I love the transition in the game on that part, but it just flowed so smoothly. So yeah. Episode 3, Bill. Episode.
No, I honestly think Bill, unless episode 2 is only like 30 minutes long. Or they add a lot of stuff to it. I think Bill's going to be in episode 2.
Maybe. Oh, this is good. Yeah, like you think it's episode 2. I feel like they want to flesh out a little bit more Tess. That's why I'm thinking that we're going to get mostly Tess.
Now, I said again, maybe, but there was not a lot of content between where we are now and where Bill is.
Now, also, you have to consider too the tower. I guarantee they're going to spend at least 10, if not 15 or 20 minutes in that and the towers.
And that's fine.
The building
but
or the city.
Again, like there's a lot of stuff that they could add, but there's also maybe stuff that they won't add.
Yeah.
So it is all what we're going to have to see. But Bill could be at the end of episode 2.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, still, yeah.
Especially if it's an hour and a half long, like episode 1 was.
I feel like it's going to be an hour. I think they're going to cut it to hours. I think the Sarah story alone was like a half an hour, and they had to fit that somewhere, so they wanted to really flush that out. So my guess is an hour from now. If it's an hour and a half, that's going to be insane. I mean, it would be cool, but I'm not expecting that. But yeah, so Bill, and then I feel like we're going to spend an episode or 2 with him, and then go to the brothers and spend an episode or 2 with them, and then go to Tommy. So Tommy's probably going to be around episode, my guess is 7. Maybe 6, maybe between 6 and 7 is going to be Tommy's story. I feel like that's like, it's almost like a climax, of the game, because that's the turning point.
Actually,
for
you know what they could do? I think entirety of episode 2, we said, is probably going to be to Bill. Maybe through Bill.
Yeah.
Episode 3 is going to be starting to introduce that there are bandits in the world, and they're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Possibly. Now, this is only going off of the game structure.
Yeah.
But if that's the after point of that, where we meet the black guy and his little brother,
yeah,
and they go through all that, that could easily be episode 3 into episode 4. Episode 4 being where they could introduce Ellie talking about her and Riley for the DLC, and then episode 5 could be them. Well, of course, episode 4 will be the ending where they both die and oh shit. But episode 5 can be them getting to Wyoming, and they could have flashback part where they talk about what happened between Joel, Marlene, and Tommy.
Yeah.
And then episode 5 ending with them getting to Tommy.
Yeah. Episode
6 being the best moment of Last of Us when they're at the cabin after going through all the stuff with Tommy.
Yes, that's why I say it's like the climax. I actually thought in the game that it was going to go a certain way. I was like, this game's going to get contrite or whatever. And then that scene happened. I was like, okay, I'm back on board, with this game.
And then episode 7 is going to be them traveling to get to learning about not the cannibal. The cannibal is going to be episode 8.
You're talking about the university area, right?
They have to go to the university, and Joel gets stabbed. There's going to be a moment where we think Joel could die. That's how episode 7 is going to end. Episode 8 is going to be where Ellie's taking care of Joel, hunting.
Oh god,
and
I
stuff,
forgot about that. Yeah, that's actually
cannibals.
Really. You do have to have the university too, or at least that the because there's like 2 points. I think. Yeah, I forgot about the stab, but also there's something I thought about Ellie in the university area that was like really important. Maybe it was like the fact that maybe it was the fact that you knew that Joel cared about Ellie. I think that was at the point where I realized that he genuinely like is.
Yeah, that's where we start really seeing it.
Yeah. So obviously the university is important for those 2 stakes. But yeah, then the cannibal in episode 8.
Yeah,
I can't wait until the cannibal.
And then after that, then they're going to be on the last track of the hospital.
Yeah, because episode 9 it ends, and we're going to see the ending. So yeah, I think that is, I think, or we think how it should be structured.
That should be about the pacing.
Yeah,
roughly.
So yeah, but
I'm excited.
Yeah, no, this has been one of the best takes from a game. Adaptations from a game.
This has the
series.
Highest potential for any video game property as a show.
And
now, I'm not going to say that the Sonic movies were bad. They were good.
Yeah, but they were fun. They weren't deep. Like, and that's the thing. I think that Sean is going to start realizing that it's not about the apocalypse. The apocalypse brings out characters, but the characters are the key thing to the show. And obviously, if they screw that up somehow, it's not going to be a good show. But I don't see them screwing it up.
I think they have good enough showrunners and actors that they'll be fine.
Exactly.
I'm actually kind of excited to see if they're going to have Nolan North and the person that voiced Ellie be in the show at some point.
They are. I know that 100%.
Okay, then I'm excited to see where they put them.
Yeah. If I had to guess, and Bill, he has like a love interest. I think it's the one who plays Joel is
Frank.
His love interest. Yeah. Is his name Frank?
Yeah, no, the character is Frank. Yeah.
Okay, I think he plays Frank. I don't know that 100%.
Frank is dead by the time you meet him.
Yes, I think it would be a past thing, unless they show it. Unless they show how he died. That'd be
Frank hung himself.
That's gonna be dark.
Did you forget that?
I forget about a lot of the little details. Actually, yes, because it's been like a decade.
We finally got to the school in Bill's quest. We find that the battery was gone. We find that the battery was gone, and there's a bloater. We have to kill the bloater. Then you get out, and he's like, "Fuck, that was the backup. That was plan A, B, C, D, all the way to fucking Z." That was his exact words. I love that, by the way. And they go to this house, and they find Frank's body there, him hanging.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh. And then you go to the car, and you find that the car has the battery that they had in the school. And then you find the note, and he says, okay, honestly, Bill, fuck you. I literally could not stand working with you another day. Therefore, I went to go find the battery that you kept obsessing over.
Oh,
Wait,
man.
you said if we went for it, it would literally kill me. Well, I guess you were right. Because I guess he got bit and then he decided to hang himself instead of
That's
turn.
fair. That's
but
fair.
It's just like, well, fuck you. I guess you're right about the battery and me dying. Go fuck yourself. I doubt you'll ever be man enough to come out this far, but if you do, go fuck yourself.
Now, obviously, Horn will be very, very happy, and I don't think they're going to do this, to have the rat story or the Rat Man.
Yes, Rat Man. Dude, Rat Man is like my favorite backstory ever put into a video game. And people, by the way, the reason people call him Rat Man is because there was a character named Rat Man in Portal, the original Portal game. And he was a story that's kind of being told in the background of Portal. And that's kind of what happens in Last of Us 2. He's never actually called Rat Man in The Last of Us. But that's what everyone refers to him as.
But I think this will wrap up our review for The Last of Us Episode 1. And we'll see where things go. We'll see if our predictions are right. And yeah, we'll be here next week at the same time around 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if you have anything to wrap it up or any last thoughts, Horn. I think this show's just
damn
fantastic.
it, Sean is too good at guessing things, but he's also not going to guess.
Yeah. I'm curious on how he's gonna, if the characters are gonna capture how he feels.
To be fair, though, a lot of people guessed that Ellie would be probably like a baby factory or something.
I mean, it makes sense. It's like as a standpoint from a story perspective,
But also, it's really funny the baby factory element in the fact that she is kind of a lesbian, and that is even funnier in my opinion.
I don't know if he would. Obviously, that's like little details that he'll be like, oh, okay.
Which also, that's something that like actually got people pissed off about Last of Us 2. So Ellie is kind of a lesbian. That is kind of hinted at, lesbian or bi.
Yeah.
And if she has to bring forth the rest of the human race to like have immunity,
oh god, I didn't even think about that.
That's a problem.
That is that's actually pretty
that was
funny.
something we were hoping was going to be addressed in The Last of Us 2, and Last of Us 2 was just a basic ass revenge story, and it was like, fuck, what? No.
Yeah, because there's obviously way more intriguing issues.
The military dictatorship, what happened to them? The Fireflies, how do they react to Marlene getting killed? Nobody gives a shit. Oh no, it's just a revenge story of, oh, they killed Joel. Which, by the way, they killed Joel? The most badass motherfucker that can't fucking die? What? I don't know. That's just...
Anyways, yes, obviously these are on the games. We'll see how the show handles it. Hopefully they handle it a lot better. I do think that Joel would eventually die in the series. It's just a matter
absolutely.
Of how, because obviously that was like a big thing about the first one. We're like, Jesus Christ, he's a selfish bastard. But you can't help but like him.
Joel being killed is not what I had issue with. It was how so much it was just like
it was the narrative.
Wasn't the main focus. It was just like, oh yeah, he's dead now. We got to focus on Ellie and how she reacts and how she basically becomes Joel. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want.
Yes. But yeah, anyways, we're gonna be ending stream, and we'll see you all in a week. Wait, where the hell is my thingy? Oh yeah, right here. And thanks to Horn for being here as well, Sean. Anyways, have a good night.
Bye-bye.